Welcome to Talks with Stephen Bradley Waters. In this video, I'm going to talk about politics and freedom. I could go on a huge tangent with politics, really. I could actually create an entire account dedicated to politics and how unjust the world is, how there's a lack of cohesion, um, no integration, there should be more diversity. There's an awful lot of things I could talk about, and I do it sometimes in my video content. Like I say, though, I could do a whole channel dedicated to these issues. But I've got other things I want to dedicate my life to, and you can only focus on so many causes. So I can do content in periods, but I don't want it to be sort of like my legacy, if you like. I don't want to be that's what I'm known for or something. But the world is becoming, I think, a dangerous place stemming from politics, which, when politics is corrupt and there's serious underlying issues, it affects society as a whole, and that can cause uprisings, even coups. I think the situation with Trump at the moment, I would honestly be surprised if he survives his entire presidency term. I just think it's been chaotic in a very, very short period of time. I did a video before Trump took term, before he came into office. I did say, like, if he continues the rhetoric and implements his tariffs and things like this, I did say countries, nations, entire continents will band together and create their own communities, their own sort of empires, really. It's just, and America will get left out. So at the moment, you've got Trump. He's like the bully in the playground. That's what I compared it to. I said people are sick and tired of this bully because America has forced its influence around the world, and they act like they're the authority. That's an issue around the world. A lot of people are just fed up with it. And Trump's come in and he's magnified the issue. People are starting to lose faith and trust in America, and it's like because they don't adhere to anything. I was thinking of something recently, and it was a case, like I said, I did say in a previous video that it's frustrating with America in the politics because they're so divided. It's outrageous. So every 4 years, essentially, someone new comes into office. I think someone can stay on another term if they get elected, but for the most part, people keep coming and going, come and go. And someone as petulant as Trump, it is a bit of a nightmare because he just cancels any progress that was made under a different administration, no matter good or bad. He just cancels everything. So how can you have any growth in the economy and in the like in your country when everything keeps getting eroded? So I was thinking of it like, I don't know, it's not Chinese whispers, but that game. I don't know what you'd call it. Do you know when you got a group together and you create a story together? So you get to say, I don't know if it's the first word or a sentence, for instance. Let's say you say a story. So the story begins, and then someone else will continue and say, a little girl entered a village, and then someone else will say something else. There she found a rose. Do you see what I mean? Like, everybody's coming up with something, and it's making a story. By the end, there's actually a chapter gets formed. And that come from everybody contributing towards a goal. It was going in a direction. That's what, in my mind, that's how I was picturing it. And when I thought about Trump, I just thought, you've got this thing where you say this story begins, and then every time Trump comes, he just rubs it out, and then maybe you get that bit there. I can't remember exactly how I said it now, but the story begins: a little girl entered a village, and she found a rose. Again, then Trump comes into office, cancels it all out again. So it starts all again. Every time Trump comes, it just smashes everything up. So how can you build growth and sustainability and confidence in your partners, like in terms of countries where you have trade agreements and all sorts of agreements? How can you have any of that cohesion when you've got someone who comes in like a toddler and just smashes everything up because he just wants to be the only one known for anything? It's out. He's callous. He really is dangerous. So when I look at America, for instance, it just constantly regresses because there's no cohesion. Rather than build something and it be sustainable, it keeps getting cancelled and everything's starting again. It's like these people, they're unhinged. Everybody wants to be a martyr. It's crazy to me. So I'm someone that's quite good at analysing things. I just inherently see visions. I just see, oh, that's going to happen. Well, that's going to happen. And then inherently it does. And it just does, I think too many people, they put their faith in an individual, and that individual, unfortunately, is unhinged. And what would you expect when someone's unhinged? An unhinged lunatic. on the loose with power. It's quite a frightening concept. So, of course, you know, you look around now and you can see the prices of everything in America is going to go up, right? Once that starts to affect the common people, the average person, it's going to have a huge societal impact, of course. You're going to find people, there are going to be more thefts, so there's going to be more crime. And then there's going to be uprisings, and then there'll be coups. You know, things like this can happen because people, when it affects your daily life and you can't even sustain a basic quality of life, that's a big issue, isn't it? Then you're finding communities divided, and politics can do that, which is why I don't really intend to just go too heavily in politics, to be honest, talking about it too deeply all the time, because it does create division. And it's about bringing communities together, but you have to have the conversation and open people's eyes to be able to see it. But yeah, the situation in America is quite. I find America at this point in time a very dangerous place. I consider it incredibly dangerous. In terms of travel, I don't. While Trump's in term, I don't know if I want to travel. If I was to travel into America, I don't think I'd want to. And I find that quite crazy because I think to limit any freedom of movement due to a single entity, I think it's quite crazy, isn't it? But I actually consider it a very dangerous place. Because I don't want to go. I don't want to lend into conspiracies and things like that. But there's a lot of corruption in America, and the part that I find more scary isn't the people, although there's a lot of crime and division at the moment, and of course other issues within America's society. But the thing I'm more concerned with and more worried about is those that wield power. There's too much corruption, and you know, whether people want to believe it or not, I think there's an awful lot of skeptics around the world, not just stemming from America. I think there's a lot of people on the outside go, well, that's a big coincidence, that, isn't it? The reality is, and I've wrote in one of my books, the problem is people don't have faith in the governance in America, and that's why a lot of conspiracy gets formed, because people do not trust those that lead and those that wield power, and it's just the way it is, because they don't seem to serve the people, they serve their own agendas. So that in itself just becomes incredibly dangerous. So look, I'm not saying this is fact, but I'm saying a lot of people think this way, and I personally feel this way too. If there's someone of importance on a flight and it's a threat to someone's position of power or dominance, or there's any reason to need to get rid of someone to make their life easier, they will. I don't think they hesitate too much in taking out an entire flight of people, a lot of innocent people, just to get their way. And that's America. So that's why I say I think America is very dangerous. Because first of all, you don't know if you're a target. Second of all, you don't even know if you're an innocent person surrounded by someone who is a target. It's like, this is outrageous. Like, you shouldn't have to worry about these things. And it ain't even about that the average civilian. It's actually the people that wield power. So when it comes to things like that, you can never. I don't think you can ever 100% prove it unless there's a pattern, and there is an awful lot of patterns in America. There's a video I want to show. There was a lot. I was gonna be fair here. What I was gonna do, because I've just like to repost an awful lot of Canada politicians at the moment, because they're talking sense, and it's something that I already foresaw. America, the US president wants to impose tariffs on specific countries. They can do it too. And that's the thing with America. And I read in the news last night, and it said Trump's tariffs come into effect on the 4th of February. And within those tariffs, there's exceptions as well, like where if there's a retaliation, there's more penalties and things. I thought, this guy is a joke, mate. He's an absolute joke. He's like a toddler. That's how I see him. So he'll throw his dummy out the pram, cause absolute chaos, and say, if you fight back or say a damn thing against me, that there's going to be heavier tariffs. But everybody else has the power to do the same, though. You're not the only entity in the world. And that's what he wants to become, you know. He wants to be an empire on himself. It's crazy. And so I foresaw a lot of this before it happened. And I said countries and unions and continents will come together. And in all honesty, I've liked what I've seen so far in Europe. This is the European Union now, like the EU. So the UK isn't part of the European Union, but what happens there has a direct influence on us. It's a bit of a shame we're not part of that. The part I think a lot of Americans maybe don't know about the world is that the UK left the European Union. So the European Union, with the politics and governance, doesn't have a direct influence on the UK, because we have our own politics and governance. That's why that's how the separation occurred. But in terms of the continent of Europe, the UK, because of its position geographically, is always a European nation. So we're a European country. We're just not part of the EU politics. So when I see the speeches being said within the European Union, of course, that's not coming from the UK, but it's nice to see the rest of Europe sort of standing as one, at least from what I've seen, and they're standing up. And I'm like, that's what I said would happen, and that's what I hoped would happen. And it makes me proud, the fact that other countries are banding together and becoming a very, very strong entity. I can see Canada reaching out and having stronger ties to Europe, the UK, even Australia. I think nations and continents, they have common interests in, and a common democracies. And again, this is what I'm talking about. America well, say a country, it's huge, isn't it? But America on it's going to stand alone. They're going to be a pariah. And I said that they'll be a pariah on the world stage, because they've always been a bully anyway. Always said, we're the best, we're the best. Someone keeps standing there going, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best. Everybody else goes, this guy, who is this? And then you're standing there on your own. Nobody's watching anymore. Everybody's gone off, and they're creating their own communities and societies and things like this. And they're coping and thriving. And you still got that the America going, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best. It's like, yeah, you unhinged lunatic. Go and stand in the corner. Unfortunately, that's what's happening. So you'd be the best on your own if you want, And this isn't, well, I could say it's not the American people's fault, but it's whoever voted for what. You've got to have an open mind. I don't want to go too far in politics, of course. Oh, it does get annoying, because it's affecting the rest of the world. It's just at this stage in time, especially with like the war in Ukraine and Russia. You'd think the rest of the world would take note of that and say, look, this is not good. We can obviously see this is dysfunctional. It's obliterating an entire country. And you see the before and after photos. And then you see the issue in Israel. And again, you see the before and after photos. And it's outrageous that this is even allowed. Like, why is this good for the world? Why is destroying communities and destroying the planet a positive thing? All because a single nation wants to control something and have more stronger power. To the point where it's like genocide, and it's crazy. Like, why is this allowed? Like, why is it allowed? The world should be free, and it should be in a state of peace. It's far from peace. So rather than the United States look on at those situations and think, yeah, we need to get stronger allies, we need to make stronger ties, and be a nation that the rest of the world can trust, and we can forge alliances. Instead, America's again a bully in the playground that says that everybody's going to bow to us. If you want our support, you're going to do this. And it's like, mate, this isn't how it works. This isn't how friendships work. It's less allies at this point, isn't it? And I don't understand the benefit of that at all. So let's see. It's a speech Kennedy gave, and I really liked it. I saw it yesterday, I think it was. Like I say, there was something I saw of Trump. He's an idiot. It really is. It's unreal. If you don't ask, I've seen reporters ask very serious questions. I don't always agree with the news media, so I'm not saying everything the news says. But a question is a question, and if you listen to a question, you think, well, I'd be interested in the answer to that. He just dismisses everything. He comes up with. I say he doesn't talk facts. I haven't researched what the other person says. So when someone says this, there was something on a website or something, some sort of policy that's been there for over a decade, and Trump's saying that he's changed the policy last time, and the person was answering back saying, no, you didn't, because that's been there for before your term, and it was there after your term, and even during your term. And he said, and Trump just goes over it, no, I changed it, and I've just improved something else. And then the guy went, and then and then he started talking, and then the guy wanted to follow up, and he said, quiet, he doesn't want to talk about topics that make him look bad, that reflect the truth. And that's something I noticed. He's a deflector, and he just keeps posturing, and it's quite, I find him quite crazy, to be totally honest. And then you see other world leaders, and I'm seeing the Canadian Prime Minister, they articulate themselves well. They talk with confidence, assurance, and they're direct and they're knowledgeable. And I'm thinking, that's a leader. That's someone you can actually stand behind and understand what their policies are. And you think, yeah, I trust them. You listen to Trump, and like I said, it's like a toddler, and it's like, I can't deal with this guy. There's no way. And if that's the problem is the president or a prime minister is the face of a country. Trump is the face of America right now. That's and how he's behaving is making Americans in all without being rude, it's making Americans look dumb because he's dumb as rocks. It's unreal. Like this guy's clueless. He's a businessman. That's what Trump is. He's a businessman. But you know, in business, he can't always be trusted and things. So, but the way he behaves and talks is it's unreal. It's like the IQ, very low IQ, the way he comes across. You know. But anyway, I don't want to go too far on politics. Like I say, I was going to do different content, but it's just in my head because of what's going on at the moment, just because of these trade things. But let's listen to Kennedy, and this is what I stand for. Like this is the sort of things that I think in general myself. Like I haven't heard this speech before, and I heard it, and I went, "That's what I'm talking about." You know, the world should be as one. But unfortunately, politics and money dictate our lives. Before we get on to that, I was going to do a separate video, but I don't really want to. In the face of adversity, when you're in a country really binding rules that maybe you don't agree with, and your life is getting harder, is sometimes all you can do is take stock of your own life. You know, it's like, yeah, there's wider issues going on around the world, and some of them are going to impact your life. But it's like everything's like waves, like the sea. It comes in waves, so there'll be good times, there'll be bad times. And like I say, that sometimes all you can do in those moments is focus on your own life and say, okay, during this term of presidency, life is going to get hard. There's going to be periods when it's going to get heavy. And at that point, it's take stock of your own life. So a lot of it is going to come down to financial. If you just look at it, economy, it's going to be money, isn't it? So the cost of living is going to get higher. So if you can adjust your mindset a little bit, like I'm doing it myself, and it isn't really about the economy. It's more about my lifestyle. I'm adapting. It's like my own peace. And I was going to do a separate video on it, but I think with this current climate and the way things are, I think it might help other people have a similar mindset for a different reason. Like I haven't got a lot of money. Money's tight. I anticipate things improving because I'm taking steps to improve things, and I'm still going to have the same mindset though. So I'm not going to hemorrhage money. There's no need. And I just think this might be helpful to other people. When you're used to spending and indulging in things, it fills a void that is not necessarily the best way to fill a void. So it's not sustainable. So for instance, let's say you're lonely or you're bored or whatever issue it is, and you buy things to make up for it, just to give you a bit of a stimulant. And then that doesn't stimulate you enough, so you go and buy something else. So you're hemorrhaging money on indulgences. If you can stem them indulgences, now you have control of your money. So effectively, it's like you control your money doesn't control you. That's a good way to be. So, like for instance, in the past, I used to buy an awful lot of video games. Even if I'm not going to play them yet, I'd buy them and think, "Oh, I'm going to play that later," and I make a massive collection. Now I look at my life and I'm like, well, I've got things to do this month. You know, I've still got my book projects I'm working on. I'm enjoying watching some TV shows at the moment. There's a specific video game I'm enjoying playing. If I had another one, would I have time to play it, or am I playing this one? It's like, well, I don't need it right now. I know it's a silly little thing like that, but these are the things. When I look at my spending over the past month, the things I've bought, I haven't indulged. You see this background now. I bought a green screen. It wasn't expensive, but it was something I just wanted to elevate my content. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy this green screen because I really want to have an upgrade. When I was ill for like 2 weeks. I bought a humidifier to help make the air less dry. So it's to help with the coughing. That was an important purchase. And I've recently paid for a forklift license to do my refresher on that. I'm investing in myself, but I have no interest in indulging further. Like, I don't have a need for things. Now, I know this is thrown off slightly, but the point is that means money coming in isn't hemorrhaged out. That's an important thing. That's an important place to get to. So when the world is getting a bit more scary, I guess, and a bit harder, by not overspending, you can mitigate the issue. So like if something costs a little bit more, okay, it's not ideal and it's not hardly affordable. But if you're not hemorrhaging this way, then you might have enough just to cope through it. So maybe just less takeaways. You know, maybe the cost of living's a little bit higher on your grocery shop, but then you just can't have takeaways. But it's like maybe adapt your life so you don't have the takeaways anymore. Now, of course, these have consequences because businesses can go out, you know, and it ain't ideal, but you do have to focus on your own self and making sure that you can survive. You know, there's no point a business surviving and you're like struggling your entire life. You're going to have to look after yourself. You know, if your government isn't going to look after you, you have to look after you, and then you survive through it. Um, so let's listen to Kennedy because I thought it was a really good video. Let's try and get back.
I speak of peace, therefore, as the necessary, rational end of rational men. I realize the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war, and frequently the words of the pursuers fall on deaf ears. But we have no more urgent task. Let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and the means by which those differences can be resolved. And if we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures, and we are all mortal. That is the most important topic on Earth, peace. What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana, enforced on the world by American weapons of war. Not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on Earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, peace in all time.
And what is amazing, absolutely amazing, is the
yeah, you know, that was an incredible speech. I was getting goosebumps at the beginning. And, you know, of course, I consider myself a British citizen. I'm British. But I always consider myself more of just a human on Earth. And I look at that's what it is. I see the world as a whole, and I see certain areas are hurting. And then I see where the cancer spreads from, if you like. And I see it, you know, I see it coming from Russia. I see it coming from America. And you see it coming from the, I don't know what peninsula you call it. I don't want to sort of like give the wrong impression. But if you see that Israel and things, you know, you see it coming from sort of places like that. China, in all honesty, I see as a very confusing empire, really. You know, on the one hand, you don't trust them, and on the other hand, they say some positive things. So it's like I think they're very good at playing politics, to be totally honest. And so you could argue they are part of the issue too, but to the extent, I'm not sure. It's not as clear. But I would argue there's certain areas of the world that are very divided, and the influence it has on the rest of the world is quite profound. So I hear a lot of UK people complain about the UK, and I don't think it's anywhere near as harsh or as bad as those other places I speak of. And I think what people fail to recognise is the influence those places have on our economies and our societies. You know, the US influences the UK heavily. A lot of people try to replicate Americans. That's where the part of the problem is. So they see Americans behaving one way or this, or they have a policy that they kind of want that for the UK. And it's like, do not try to turn the UK into the US, you know, because it's crazy. There's things we can always learn from each other, of course. But the world should be one. We should be respectful of each other. But you can only respect what's reciprocated. And at the moment, America, in terms of those that lead, they're not acting like leaders. They're not acting like leaders of a free world, for sure. They're trying to create their own empire, and it's quite frightening. So sometimes you've got to go, look, we have a lot in common, especially with the individuals in America. But the the policies and what their rhetoric is not what the rest of the world stands for, and it doesn't focus on a world of peace. It's just so far removed from that. It's just crazy, and it's so you recognize it. So this isn't part of the world that I want to be a part of. And I think you're going to find more and more people are going to have similar thoughts on it. I always saw myself maybe even living in America one day. There's for all the bad, there's an awful lot of good too. But right now, the bad is outweighing the good, and it's got to the point in myself where I saw the future, and I just thought, I could see myself there. Now, at this present time, I don't even want to travel into America. I wouldn't even want to go. I don't even want to enter the area. I don't want to. For me, in my image in my mind, it's just one big red no-go zone. That's how I feel. Hopefully it changes, but I don't think it's going to change while the current administration is there. I personally, I always see the good in the bad, so I don't think it's all doom and gloom. Like I said, I don't think the politics was perfect in the first place. I don't think anyone had they trust the previous administrations for decades, even for history. I don't think so. I don't think there's been a period where people have had true faith. And that's all politics. You could, even in the UK, has there ever been a politician anyone believed in or agreed with? It's like, you're not really. Politics is a very sketchy area, isn't it? So I'm not saying America's all it's all America, America. You could do that about any politician in any nation. It's just the vast influence America has, and they represent themselves as the authority of the world. So then if you're going to represent yourself as the authority of the world, you best be the squeakiest clean you can be. And I think when you behave like a toddler, it's not the best example to follow. So problem is, do others start acting petulant and the world becomes unhinged? Possibly. But time changes, and things can improve in the future. But the way I see Trump's administration is, like I said, it's not like everybody trusts the previous, and I think someone had to come in and destabilize the status quo. And from that point of view, I think he's doing that. He's doing it in a very abrupt way, but there's a method to the madness, whether he recognizes it or not. It's like you're going to see things get churned up, things that didn't work in the past that was corrupt. I think, look, I don't want to go too far into it, but most people could look at the pharmaceutical companies, the cost of medication, the healthcare. I think that's one of the biggest ones. Cost of insurance, all these different things. These are things that really need to get chewed up a bit, don't they? They need to get so people can have a proper conversation about it and say this isn't working. Maybe state laws change so they have more power in specific states rather than the federal government and things. I don't know. I'm not that deep into it, but maybe Trump's churning will create conversations on this, and then maybe the country evolves and it becomes stronger for it in the future. And even though Trump didn't intend for it, maybe that's the impact he has for the next generations. That's the positive to take from it. You can always look at the doom and gloom and think everything's a lost cause. I try to see the positive though, and I look further forward. Because you could say that, Trump thinks he's the be-all and end-all, and America survives long after Trump's administration. It's just how much chaos is going to be born during it. But the same can be said for any politician and leader that comes into power. And unfortunately, like I said, you have to just go with the tide, ride the waves and prepare. Don't be unprepared. Don't be shocked by everything. Everybody knew about the trade war that's going to happen. It was already anticipated. So people shouldn't be surprised when it happens. You should have been preparing for it. Now, of course, resources don't always mean you can. If your finances are tight, of course, what can you do? But again, the best anyone can do is control their spending. That's all I would say. Is protect yourselves in that sense, because the less reliance on money you have, the less reliance you have on the government. You don't need them so much for things, do you? Don't need them to subsidise this. You don't need to provide this service. You can take care of yourself, and if you can take care of yourself, it's a strong place to be, because that's what governments want. They want you to be subservient to them. You need them to rely on them, and when you rely on them, guess what? Then you have to conform and fit in, and it becomes a bit of an issue. Yeah, like I said, I could do a whole channel on politics. To be honest, I could react to every news article, or any new change in the world, but it's not a place I want to go, because, to be honest, it bothers me beyond measure. If I get my head into this and I start thinking, it drives me nuts. Politics drives me nuts because it's like I always talk about, even in workplaces, I struggle to follow inept leadership, even in workplaces. And when I look at the larger scale, I find it frightening, the level of power some unhinged leaders have, and it is terrifying, isn't it? Like, literally, the power they have over an individual's life is like, wow, that's surreal. And in America, they seem to play kamikaze with people's lives. You'll just see things happening to planes, things happening to a car, things happening. It's like, oh, that's very convenient, isn't it? That wasn't just. Is that? Oh, it was just a random incident. It's unfortunately an accident. It's like, there's a lot of them that happens in America, isn't it? A lot of accidents to specific people. It's like, that doesn't seem much of it. I don't think much is an accident. So it's not, in that sense, it's not safe because America play kamikaze with people's lives.